Good evening, everyone. My name's Cami Fields. I'm a licensed master social worker and director of outreach and education at Grant Halliburton Foundation. Thank you so much for spending some of your evening with me. I don't know about in Aubrey, but in Richardson, it's really rainy. And so it makes me want to like curl up on a couch and not do anything. So I appreciate you taking some of your time of your night to talk about mental health. And one aspect of mental health is resilience that we're going to be talking about. So if you haven't heard of Grant Halliburton Foundation before, we are a nonprofit based in Dallas, and we really work to promote better mental health in adolescents and help prevent suicide. So a lot of what we do and what my education team does is go around and educate students, teachers, counselors, parents, all about different aspects of mental health, things like stress, depression, suicide prevention, bullying prevention, and resilience. So this is our presentation on resilience called Bounce Back, Building Resilience in Children and Teens. So as we all know, after this last year and some change that we've lived through, I think we all need more resilience than ever to have, gotten through that and keep getting through life. And we know that our kids are really going through a lot right now, and they've had a lot of stress on their plate, and a lot of them are really struggling in ways that maybe they haven't in the past or in previous years. So we're going to talk about kind of what is resilience, kind of defining that a little bit, and then talk about the ABCs of resilience and kind of some misconceptions of how an adversity can lead to a consequence or an outcome. And then we're going to talk about some building blocks of resilience. And these are the 7 C's of resilience that were developed by Dr. Kenneth Ginsberg. So he is a researcher and really an expert in adolescent resilience. So if you're interested in learning more about this topic or about his 7 C's, he's written a couple books. And again, his name is Dr. Kenneth Ginsberg. And so that's really going to be the portion of real tangible things that you can do at home and at school to really help build that sense of resilience in your kids. So first off, what are we talking about here? What exactly is resilience? Well, to start off, resilience is not the absence of distress or difficulty. I know sometimes we wish that we could kind of take away hard things or take away barriers or difficulty from our kids and just kind of make their road a little bit easier. But sometimes that's just not going to happen. We're all going to go through hard times. We are all going to go through adversity. And so resilience is really the ability to adapt and grow following adversity. So be able to get through those hard times and not only be able to get through, but to be actually become stronger and become a better version of yourself who's ready, to face hard things in the future. And one thing that we know through research is the CDC showed in 2015 with some research that they did that 8 out of 10 times a young person who was lost to suicide was due to a mental health condition that went back to at least a year. They came out with all new research in 2018, and it showed that more oftentimes than not, a young person who was lost to suicide was due to them not having the resilience and the coping skills to get through a hard time. So that's a big difference. And that's actually kind of good news because those are things that we can work on with our kids, and we can really build that resilience and build their coping skills and ability to get through those hard times. So that's how, important some of this can be. So the good news here is that we can strengthen resiliency at any age. Even, us as adults in the lives of kids, we can strengthen our own resiliency. We can take specific steps to help develop resilience in children and teens, and we can model handling stress in healthy ways. And so in a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today, it comes down to us showing, not just telling, how we do these things for ourselves and really modeling how we can cope also. So why do we need resilience? Why do our kids need resilience? I think that kind of pre-pandemic, I used to spend a lot of time explaining or trying to convince parents and teachers that their kids were stressed and that they were overwhelmed. And I feel like since the pandemic happened, it was kind of so in our face that we knew our kids were struggling and we knew that they were stressed out because everyone was. it kind of made us stop and say, oh yeah, wow, our kids are going through a lot. And so I think that's one thing that maybe is almost kind of a positive that came out of it, because I think moving forward, we're really going to see um, things that affect them, and we're going to really acknowledge them. So some of these things here on the screen, things like poverty, setbacks, neglect, trauma, abuse, relationships, just school and stress. Some of these are larger and more serious than others, but all of these require resilience from young people. And especially when a young person is dealing with a lot of these different things at once. Um, and particularly in a year where we've been through this pandemic, a lot of young people as well as adults, we've kind of been stuck in this prolonged stress response, right? Because we were under all of this chronic stress for a long period of time, and there wasn't really much we could do about it. There wasn't anything that we could mobilize into and help the situation and make it better. So we kind of got stuck. And so that's one reason why we really need resilience right now. So now I'm going to go into those ABCs of resilience. So there's kind of this misconception that there is some sort of adversity and then that leads straight to a consequence. Or, sometimes consequence can kind of seem like a negative word, but what we mean is just an outcome. So something bad happens and then that leads to a consequence or an outcome. But generally, there's something in the middle there that is also helping to kind of mold what that consequence will be. So here's an example. Jane and Daria are in Miss Belch's 10th grade physics class. They both struggle through the class and end up with low final grades. Jane and Daria are angry, disappointed, and sad. Okay, so both these girls had the same adversity. They both struggled through the class. They both end with a low final grade, and they're both angry, disappointed, and sad. So seemingly the same adversity. But Daria finds a tutor and commits to making a greater effort in physics moving forward, while Jane grows more and more negative. She sulks and starts performing poorly in all of her subjects. So they, seemingly had the same adversity, but they had super different consequences, right? So what is the difference here? Why did Daria, find that tutor and know that she could do better and make that greater effort, and Jane just decided to be negative and sulk and just ended up doing bad altogether at school? Well, in between A and C is that crucial letter B, which stands for beliefs. So what we believe about ourselves or what we believe about a situation can truly affect our consequence or our outcome from that adversity. So the thing about our beliefs is they can be shaped by a lot of different things. Maybe a difference between Jane and Daria was maybe, one of the girls had a really supportive family life and had people who lifted her up and told her she could do better and told her she was smart. And maybe Jane didn't have that. Maybe she had people who, told her that she was stupid or she was never going to make it or she was a failure. And so those type of things that we hear from people that we love, they can shape our beliefs. And then another thing that shapes our beliefs is our thinking and our thinking patterns. And so when we talk to students, we talk to them a lot about our coach versus critic mindset. So we all have our coach versus critic. We all have these kind of negative and positive voices that we can listen to. And when we ask young people, which one is louder? Your coach, who kind of builds you up and says, hey, you can do this, you're going to be okay, you can work harder, you can get it next time, or your critic. That's part of your brain that's saying, you're a failure, I'm not surprised that you failed, you're never going to be good at math, all those types of things. They always say the critic is louder. And I think that's the same for adults. We have that negative self-talk. And when we go to that negative self-talk time and time again, and we start to listen to it, we start to believe it about ourselves. And that's when it can be really maladaptive. So we want to really teach young people how to listen to that coach mindset and how to be intentional about being positive to ourselves and really asking ourselves, what would I tell a friend in this instance? And can I tell that to myself? So going back to the Jane and Daria example, Daria believed that she could do better. So she really used her coach mindset. And Jane did not believe she could do better. She listened to her critic. So as I said, this kind of boils down this example into really simple terms, and I'm sure there was a lot of other factors that these girls were dealing with. But it just shows that how we think about ourselves and how we feel about ourselves and what we believe can really be powerful. So, another thing about our beliefs is that parents and respected adults have the most impact and influence on a young person's beliefs about themselves. Even when it seems like nothing you say or nothing you believe about them matters, like it just goes, in one ear and out the other, it does. Your beliefs about them matter. And an adult's beliefs about a child can really shape their beliefs about themselves. And so we know that youth live up or down to our expectations. And so, if you expect them to behave poorly or you expect them to get bad grades because they got bad grades last year, they most likely are going to live down to those expectations. Um, if we know that they can do better and we believe that they can do better and we help them succeed, then they are going to live up to our expectations. So we want to make sure that we are really fostering that positive belief into our kids. So now we're at those building blocks of resilience. So this is those 7 C's of resilience. So this is going to look like a lot of information and be a mouthful, but I promise it'll make sense when we all break it down. So the first one is competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, coping, and control. So these are the 7 C's. And the first one here is competence. So Dr. Ginsburg talks about how competence is really the bedrock to resilience. And competence, you can be competent about anything. And really building that competence is, learning that you can fail, putting in hours, putting in work towards something, knowing that you can do something well and independently and autonomously. So it's acquired through actual experience. So you can't gain competence in something by someone telling you how to do something. We can tell a young person how to clean the dishes, but if they haven't done it themselves, then they don't have that competence to do it. The ability to handle situations effectively. So to, be able to rely on themselves and know that they can get through hard times. And then it's derived from a wide range of achievements, from almost, invisible tiny steps to major leaps. And so for me, using a personal example growing up, I was really competent in volleyball. I played volleyball my entire life. It's something that I put time into every single week, every single month, every single year of my life. And that was something that I knew that I was good at. And oftentimes that can bleed into other parts of your life. So if a kid feels really competent in one thing, it can kind of allow them to branch out because they know, okay, I can be good at that. And I've failed and I've bounced back. So it kind of lets them be competent in something else. So to help foster that sense of competence, we want to help children focus on their individual strengths. So what are their strengths? What are they good at? What do they like? What kind of gives them joy? And really build those up. We want to acknowledge what they do well and not just their mistakes. So, it's easier to kind of recognize things that are done wrong or things that are mistakes. And sometimes those are the things that we actually comment on when something is done well or something is done, kind of the way it's supposed to. Sometimes we don't acknowledge it because in our mind, we're just like, yeah, they were supposed to do it that way. But trying to make sure that we are really acknowledging when we see them do something well. And then allowing for safe mistakes and self-correction versus overprotecting them. So one example that I always think of when I think of safe mistakes and self-correction is, again, I was a volleyball player my entire life. And, up until I graduated high school, I was the absolute worst at keeping up with my gear. I would come to, a tournament without the right jersey or without my knee pads or my shoes or whatever it may be. And every single time my mom would come and bail me out. So she would bring me my knee pads or bring me my jersey or bring me whatever it was that I needed to make sure that I could play in the game. So I never missed a game because I didn't have my stuff, but I never learned that I needed to bring my stuff on my own. So I really didn't ever get better at it until I got to college and I realized that my mom wasn't going to come and bring me my stuff. I had to, do it my own. So I didn't really learn that until then. So that's kind of an example that if she would have maybe let me fail a couple times and let me miss the game and not be able to play because I didn't have my jersey, I maybe would have remembered to bring my jersey, for the rest of the games that season. So that's kind of an example of a safe mistake and self-correction. This is a really good quote from Julie Lithcott-Hames in her book of How to Raise an Adult. She says, when children aren't given the space to struggle through things on their own, they don't learn to problem solve very well. They don't learn to be confident in their own abilities, and it can affect their self-esteem. The other problem with never having to struggle is that you never experience failure and can develop an overwhelming fear of failure and disappointing others. This is definitely something that I've seen with young people that I've worked with and young people that we talk to, is kind of this big, overwhelming fear of failure and failing the people around them or failing their parents. And I think that that's a huge lesson that we have to teach our kids, that it's okay to fail and everybody fails and you can always bounce back. You can always try again. So now we're going to move from competence into confidence. So confidence is really deeply rooted in competence. So you can't have confidence without first building that competence and, putting in the hours to something, putting in the work and figuring out how to do something on your own. So it's not necessarily the same as self-esteem. So it's not the same as, how you feel about yourself and how you value yourself, or, the result of praise or kind of being told that you're special or you're loved. It's really the solid belief in your own abilities. And then also your willingness to try new things. So I talked about, once you have that competence in something, and that gives you confidence to try new things, to say, okay, I've tried this, I failed at this, I was able to do it again. And I got through hard times, or, I did something hard. And so it really does give you that willingness to step out of your comfort zone and do something new. So to help build that confidence, we want to see the best in a child so they can see the best in themselves. We talked about how important those self-beliefs are. And so often kids that I'm working with, they don't see the best in themselves. And not only that, but they think that the adults in their lives don't see the best in them either. So that's something that we regularly want to make clear to our kids, that we do see the best in them. And then praise honestly and catch them being good. So, kids, and particularly teenagers, they know if you're just kind of giving them fluff or, just trying to be nice. We want to make sure that we're praising honestly, that we're actually catching them doing something good, doing something well, something that we're proud of, and then praise that thing, or tell them, how proud we are of them for whatever they did. And even if it's not the result, but we praise the journey or the work that they put in. You can say, I know you guys didn't win the game, but I'm so proud of all the practice you put in all week, or all the time that you put in studying. I know you only got a C and you really wanted a B, but you did all of that work and I'm proud of you and I saw you for doing that. And then lastly, treat them as a youngster learning to navigate the world, not as an incapable child. So again, going back to that, independence, autonomy, trying to give them a little bit of space to just navigate the world, and treating them with that respect. And so you can have that mutual respect in your relationship. So we talked about competence, then confidence, and now we're going into connection. So connection is really important. I talked about that research done by the CDC in 2018. Another thing that came out of that research was protective factors. So one of the protective factors was resilience and coping skills to get through hard times, like I talked about. The other one was connection. Having people in your life that support you and affirm you and accept you and love you, and you feel like you can lean on them and ask them questions and help solve problems. That is a protective factor against suicide. So it's really important. So the solid sense of security that leads to strong values and helps prevent seeking destructive alternatives. So those kids that have positive peers in their lives and positive people around them are less likely to, seek out those unhealthy coping skills. So we want to encourage connections in 4 different main areas. So number 1 is strong family ties. And so making sure that there is quality connection within the home. And so that means quantity and quality time. So it's not just about having that quality time where it's, no screens and, having conversation and having that quality time, but it's also quantity. If you only have once a month, that's not enough. We want to make sure that we're connecting on a daily, a weekly basis if possible. And one thing that has come up a lot is parents will ask, when is a good time to try to have that connection or try to have conversations when it seems like your kid just doesn't really want to talk. Two ways that we have seen a lot of parents really get good benefits from. Number 1 is in the car. If you're driving somewhere, your kid doesn't have to look you in the eye and they can just kind of talk, and it's not as high pressure as like sitting on the end of their bed and like staring at them, asking them questions. It's a little bit less pressure. And then also you kind of, this sounds bad, but have them trapped. So you're like in the car with them. So you're going to have them for 30 minutes or however long you're going to be in the car. So you kind of have that time locked away that that you can have, some just conversation. And then another one is going on a walk, which is just another one. It doesn't make you have to have eye contact. You're doing something, you're out in nature, and you can kind of say, oh, hey, I really need to walk the dog today. He needs exercise. Would you mind going on a walk with me? And then you just go on a walk and it's low pressure. And then you can bring up different, topics of conversation that you've been wanting to talk to them about or asking questions. And it's just a little bit more low pressure. So the next area of connection is school. So, making sure they have positive connections with peers at school, that they feel connected in school. So they don't just, go to school, go to class, come home, that they're in some sort of club or sport or theater or extracurricular, to really make them feel a part of the school community. And then also having positive relationship with their teachers. And then, of course, positive peer relationships. So that could be peers within the school, or that could be outside of the school, maybe with, siblings or church friends or neighborhood friends or whatever that is, having those positive peers around them. And then lastly, community connections. So that could be, church, maybe a youth group at church, or YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, a mentoring program, some sort of art club or sports team, whatever it is that kind of connects them to the broader community, maybe volunteering somewhere. So when you look at these 4 areas of connection, you want to make sure that we're kind of balancing them out if you know that they're not as strong in one area. So if you know that your kid is not super connected at school, maybe they are dealing with some bullying or just not really connecting with their teachers or having a hard time academically, and it's kind of making it a negative space for them. Well, it's going to be even more important for them to have some sort of, peer relationships in the community, at church or at the Y or whatever it is. If you know that you're not really having a good time in the house right now, maybe there's some conflict or separation, divorce, sibling trouble, whatever it may be in the home that's giving them a hard time connecting, make sure that they have really good connection at school and, talking to their teacher and talking to their counselor, make sure they feel connected there. So it's kind of a balancing game. And then last thing about connection is when children are part of a community, so a class, a team, a club, they know they aren't alone if they struggle and that they can develop creative solutions to problems. So it's really important for them to feel connected. And we always say a connected child is a protected child. So going from connection into character. So young people need a clear sense of right and wrong and a commitment to integrity. And so you want to determine the character traits that you want to build in your children. So kind of figuring out what values are important to our family, what, character traits are important to our family. Do we really value kindness, or do we really value, having a giving spirit, or do we value respect or integrity? What are the things that are really important to you? And then sharing those with your kids, because character helps youth make wise choices and become stable adults. And this is something that you can start building really at any age at all. So we want to help children understand how their behaviors affect others. And that really can empower them to show them, everything that you do throughout your day can affect others, even if it is as small and seemingly minute as smiling at someone who, doesn't really seem like they're having a good day, or, asking someone if they want to sit with them at lunch, or, asking someone to join their game, or whatever it may be, but understanding that their behaviors really affect others. And then allowing children to consider right versus wrong and looking beyond immediate satisfaction or selfish needs. So allowing young people to figure out, what is important to me, what is right and wrong to me, and really teaching them to look beyond those satisfactions. And when it comes to character, I'll use another personal example. Something that my mom did that I really loved that she did was kindness was really important to her, a really important value that she wanted to instill in me and my siblings, but it wasn't always what she was talking about or telling us to do, or, teaching us. It was really, she showed us. And so I remember every time we were going to the grocery store or going out, it seemed like she was, helping someone put their groceries in the car, or, giving something that she had in her car. And growing up, I was just always like, man, there's always people that need things around my mom. Like, that's weird. But then as I got older, I realized that she was seeking those things out, and she was showing us with her actions, what it means to be a kind person and to look out for people that might need help. So little things like that, where you can really teach your kids by showing them what character is and what you find important. So going from character into contribution. So contribution really provides a sense of purpose for young people. And so they realize that the world is a better place because they are in it. And what a powerful statement that is, and a powerful thing for, a teenager to know that the world is better because I am in it. And, to really believe that they have the power to positively impact the world around them. And maybe that's, really broad and like globally, they can get plugged in with something that has a really big impact, or they can have something that has, a smaller, more local impact on, just their community or just their school or even just their family. But really believing that they have the power to impact things. And then helping others makes it easier to seek help when we need it. So when we, seek out others that need help and ask what we can do to help, that makes it more likely for us to ask help when we need it. And being willing to ask for help is a really big part of being resilient, because we know that no person can get through adversity or get through hard times alone. We already talked about how important connection is. And for young people, a lot of times they have trouble asking for help, or they have trouble being honest or vulnerable about what's going on because they don't want to be a burden on other people. That is something we hear over and over and over from the young people we talk to, particularly when we're talking about mental health and depression. They say, they just kind of hide things that they're going through because they know how stressed out their parents are, or even how stressed out their teachers are, other adults in their lives. And so they don't want to add to that stress. They don't want to be, another thing that they're worrying about. So kind of getting past that of feeling that like they're a burden, and, being willing to ask for help. It's a really great thing to be able to practice and to know. So we want to help them understand that there are many people in the world who don't have what they need in terms of human contact, freedoms, money, security, equality, all of those things. It's really important at any age for us to teach kids different perspectives of different types of people in the world that, just have different worldviews and different upbringings than them. And that's a big part of building empathy and being able to step into someone's shoes and look outside of your perspective. And that will go right along with learning how you can affect change, or how you can, impact someone else, because you can really step into their shoes and see what their needs are. So discuss how they can make positive contributions to change others' circumstances. So, at any age, they can do something to positively contribute to another person's circumstances. So choosing things that are really important to them or things that they are passionate about. And then making sure that we, as adults in the lives of kids, are teaching and modeling generosity and serving others. So, just like that example with my mom, making sure that we are showing that and not just telling it or teaching it or making it seem like it's something we want them to do. It's something that we want to do also, and that we're really modeling that as, an adult in their life. And then I have this example here. One way to really foster that sense of contribution and inspire young people is to show other young people who have made change and who have done things to contribute to their community. So we sometimes talk to kids about the see, care, do model. So you see something in the community. So Marley here, as an example, she saw a lack of representation in children's literature. And so she saw something, she cared, so she wanted to create change and raise awareness on this issue. And then what was she going to do? So she started a book drive to collect 1,000 books featuring Black female protagonists with the hashtag 1,000 Black girl books. By the end of her book drive, she had collected 9,000 books. And I think this was in maybe 2015 or 2016. So this was several years ago. And she's done a lot of amazing work since then. She has been on Ellen. I think she maybe started her own nonprofit. And so Marley is awesome. But there are so many stories of young people making change like this. And maybe not even this big scale of a change, but something that's smaller scale and in your community. It's an awesome way to just empower and inspire young people. And again, this sense of contribution, it really gives them a purpose and makes them believe again that them being on this earth is making the world a better place. So we've gone through competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, and now we're going to talk about coping. And coping is one of my favorite C's to talk about. I feel like I need 10 slides on coping because it is that important. And we talk a little bit more about kind of positive stress relief and coping in our other presentation that talks about stress, depression, and suicide prevention. But I'm so glad that it's included in this resilience presentation, because having positive coping skills is such a huge part of being resilient and being able to get through hard times. So children with positive coping and problem solving skills are better prepared to deal with life's challenges and are less likely to turn to unhealthy behaviors when they feel stressed. So we are all going to deal with stress. I showed all those bubbles at the beginning of reasons why we need resilience. We are all going to deal with stress. We are all going to deal with big chronic stressors. And many of those things we cannot control. They're completely out of our control. We can't control the pandemic. We can't control if, our parents are getting divorced, or if, we lose someone we love, or any of those things. Sometimes the only thing we can control is how we are dealing with it and how we are choosing to cope with our emotions and cope with our stress, and really, manage our stress. So we have this little diagram here that shows kind of a stress model. So over here on the left, you have stress. So we're experiencing a stress, and that leads to discomfort. So, our stress response is an adaptive process. We were meant to deal with small acute stressors. So if you think of an example, maybe you're driving on the highway going, 75 miles an hour, and someone swerves into your lane. And so you got to swerve over and then swerve back and honk your horn. And, they didn't hit you, thank goodness, but, you're breathing heavy and your heart's beating fast and you had to move really quick. So you were mobilized for something. Then you're able to kind of get off the road, or maybe you make it to your destination and you can kind of take some deep breaths and say, okay, I'm okay. They didn't hit me. That was really stressful. And you kind of bring your body back to equilibrium. That is a totally normal and adaptive process of our body and utilizing our stress response to mobilize for something. So Another way that we can use acute stressors can be kind of motivating. So for young people, if they have, a big test coming up or a big game, that kind of motivates them to, study hard and do good for the test, or, put in extra work at practice because they're feeling stressed about this game. So those are good stressors. When stress becomes negative to our physical health and our mental health is those big chronic stressors that keep us in that prolonged stress response. So when we're experiencing one of those big stressors, our body is feeling discomfort and it says, I got to stop this stress. Our bodies are not meant to be in our stress response for long periods of time. So if we use negative coping skills or unhealthy coping skills, it ends up leading us right back to our stress. So things like, alcohol or drugs, self-harm, taking anger out on other people, just kind of bottling it up, pretending it's not there. Any of those things, they are going to maybe help the stress for just a moment, be really short-lived, but then they're going to just lead you right back to your stress. And the thing about a lot of the negative coping strategies that young people are using is that they all kind of start as this way to feel more in control of something, but they actually end up controlling you because our brains are creatures of habit and they love to make connections. So if every time we're sad, we do something, every time we're upset, we do something, every time we're stressed, we do something, then our brains and our bodies are going to start doing that automatically without even thinking about it. So that's why it's really important for young people to be practicing those positive coping strategies and stress relievers, because that is what is going to truly lead to that relief. So, a few examples of positive coping strategies could be, you know, okay, somehow I got muted. Sorry, I was trying to mute that other person. I probably muted myself. Um, a few positive coping strategies could be things like, exercise that releases endorphins and serotonin in our bodies. Things like relaxation techniques like mindfulness or meditation or yoga. Creating, so drawing, dancing, writing, singing, any of those type of things. Listening to music, walking the dog. It can be really anything that is bringing you joy or making you feel relaxed or giving you kind of a distraction. Kind of whatever it is for you. It's going to be different for each young person, but the more we practice those, the more relief we're going to get. We need to be realistic that if we have this big issue going on, that going on a run isn't going to fix that. Your issue is still going to be there, your stress is still going to be there. But if we are practicing it regularly and we can do things that are getting our body back to equilibrium, then that is going to help us not have as many of those negative effects from stress and that chronic stress. So children with positive coping, oh wait, no, that's my last one. Let's go forward. So we want to help children put their situation into perspective. So whatever the kind of adversity is, a lot of times for young people, we know their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. We know that they haven't experienced everything in the world yet. They have many of the things that they are experiencing for the very first time. So it can feel like the end of the world, and it truly is for them. So understanding that, but gently trying to help them also put things into perspective. And then, of course, teaching healthy coping skills and what sort of things are going to help them in the long run. And then also modeling positive coping strategies consistently. So back to that modeling again, with our kids, more is caught than taught, and they are watching your every move. They are watching you on your most stressed out day to see, okay, how are they handling this? Are they taking it out on other people? Are they taking it out on me and my siblings? Are they like coming in the house and like throwing their bag against the wall because they had a tough day? And so really starting that conversation of things that help you when you feel stressed, I found it's a lot more helpful instead of, telling young people, do this, these are positive stress relievers. Instead, sharing, hey, last week I was having a really tough week and I felt stressed out pretty much all week. And I decided to go on a run because I thought maybe that will make me feel better. And when I got back, I actually did. I felt accomplished. I felt like I did something for me, and I got some endorphins from getting that exercise. So I was really surprised that it actually helped me feel better. When was the last time something like that happened for you? Or, what are the things that make you feel better when you feel stressed? And so kind of entering into that conversation and showing some vulnerability that adults need coping skills too, and we need, stress relievers. I want to pause here for a second. I don't think I have a slide for it. No, I don't. But I wanted to do a quick mindfulness activity with you, or maybe two, because I have a little bit of time before I go into the last C. So these are quick activities that you can do for yourself when you need a minute to kind of come down from stress, or just kind of take a few breaths to yourself and kind of ground yourself. These are also things that you can do with your kids. So the first one is a grounding exercise. And so we're going to use all 5 of our senses. And so you're going to kind of sit down and get comfortable and take a few deep breaths. And you're going to look around the room and notice 5 things that you can see. You can say them out loud to yourself, or you can say them in your head. I see a clock on the wall. I see my water bottle. I see my phone keeping time. I see a hat hanging on the wall. And I see that it's raining outside. And take another deep breath. Then 4 things that you can touch. So I can feel my cardigan. I can feel the table in front of me. I can feel my guest bed comforter. And I can feel my pants. Another deep breath. Then 3 things you can hear. Take my headphone out. I can hear my computer running. I can hear my husband doing the dishes. Thank goodness. I can hear my dog walking in the hallway. And take one more deep breath. Now, 2 things you can smell. So perfume. Something else I can smell. I can smell my chapstick. Then another deep breath. And then 1 thing you can taste. So all I have around me that I can really taste is my water. And then 1 more deep breath. And so if you wanted to, you could, keep going and thinking of more things that you can see, smell, touch, taste, all of those things. If you don't always have something that you can like taste around you or smell, you can just focus on things that you can see and things that you can hear. And that's something that you can do, anywhere. And no one really has to know you're doing it. And then I'll just do 1 more that's called square breathing. And so this one, you can either trace a square with your finger, like in front of your face, or you can do it down on the table in front of you, or you can just kind of close your eyes and imagine that you're seeing a square. And so the whole point of this one is focusing on our breath, and we're going to inhale, hold, exhale, hold for the same amount of time. So about 4 seconds for each. And so as I trace my square to the right, I'm going to inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Last time. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So square breathing, as simple as that. You can do it just for a couple times, or you can do it for, a couple minutes, however long you want to. And again, that's something that you can do anywhere, in the grocery store, shopping line. Your kids can do it at school. You can do it, at home before you go to bed, any of those things. So those are a couple mindfulness activities for you. So going from coping into our last C, which is control. So when children realize they have the power to control the outcomes of their decisions and actions, they are more likely to believe in their ability to bounce back. So I talked about how, our chronic stressors, a lot of these things that happen to us, these adversities, we don't have control over them. And I think young people a lot of times feel control or feel out of control over a ton of stuff that's happening in their life. They have to go to school, maybe they have to do their chores, they have to listen to all these adults in their lives. And so they feel like they don't have control over much. So I think it's our job to make sure that we give them some sort of control where it's safe and where it's healthy and where it can be helpful to them. So help children trust their own decision making. And that kind of goes back to those self beliefs and showing that we believe in them, that we see the best in them, and that we know that they can make good decisions. Um, don't hand out privileges lightly. Freedoms should be earned through responsible action. So if, a young person receives some sort of privilege or some sort of reward, but they didn't really do anything to earn it, they just kind of got it, then, that's cool. They get the reward. But if they had to work hard at something and do something to be able to get that freedom or get that reward or get that privilege, then they know that I did something to earn this. This is on me. I was in control of that. And so that's a really simple way to, give them some of that control. And then, of course, knowing when to take control back. If you're a tangible example, if your kid is learning to drive and they're about to like drive off the road, let's maybe like take control and bring the wheel back, right? So if there's something going on that's unsafe, or you really have to take control as a parent or as a trusted adult in the life of a kid, then know when to make that action. So those are the 7 C's: competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, coping, and control. And it's interesting as you go through these and as you think about them in your own home and in your own families, you can kind of start to see kind of which areas maybe your child is really strong in, and then maybe which areas they could use a little work on, or they might not be as strong in. I also thought it was interesting, at the beginning of the pandemic, when we would give this presentation, especially like over the summer, right at the beginning of this school year. It's interesting if you think about these 7 C's as kind of the core of resilience, how many of these were kind of cut off during the pandemic. So things like connection, making it really hard to connect with others. So much of it was virtual, and you just can't replace in-person connection with virtual connection. Things like coping, so many of their coping skills, if it was sports or art at school or, a summer camp, they didn't have those things that were available to them. Control, there was so much out of our control. We had to just listen to people that we hoped knew what they were talking about and, do what they thought was best. And so, it would make sense that so many kids and so many adults also were having a hard time during this pandemic, because so many of our outlets and things that are important to our resilience and getting through hard times were made more difficult. So then we have this little narrative here that kind of just breaks down each of the C's and wraps it up in a pretty bow. So we want to notice and reinforce your child's competence, build confidence in your child's competence, foster the vital connection between adult and child, develop character and a sense of contribution, develop those critical coping strategies that will help your child thrive even through difficult times, and help your child gain control by learning that privileges they earn are linked to the responsibility they demonstrate. And so I'm going to leave you with a couple quotes here. And so the first one is from Dr. Kenneth Ginsburg himself. And I don't know how many of you do puzzles, jigsaw puzzles. I love puzzles. I grew up doing puzzles. I really enjoy doing them. But when I first open the box, I turn all the pieces over and separate the outside pieces, and I do the border pieces first. And then I kind of work my way in. And so Dr. Ginsburg says parents are critical to the puzzle's completion. Boundaries and monitoring create those borders that teens can push against as they work on the harder inner pieces on their own. When we serve as healthy role models, we offer our children a reliable picture on the cover. Adolescents with appropriate boundaries and trustworthy role models can navigate the rest on their own. I think this is a really beautiful picture of, it's so visible and tangible, and you could see how that can be, applicable in, the life of a kid, and how, parents and other trusted adults, teachers and counselors, we can be that, those border pieces, and we can be that reliable picture on the cover to really help them get those harder pieces on the inside. And then lastly, resilience is not a trait that people either have or do not have. It involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that can be learned and developed in anyone. And so this is kind of a myth, I guess. It's something that we used to think many, many years ago, that resilience was kind of inherent. You either had it or you didn't have it. But we know now that that is not true, that it is something that every single person can build, every single person can have. It's not a superhuman quality. It's something that we were all made to do. We were built to be resilient and to be able to get through hard times. And so we can make sure that, all of our kids are resilient and strong, and can get through this tough stuff. So now I want to share a couple resources with you. So at Grant Halliburton Foundation, we have our herefortexas.com website, and it is a searchable database that has over 900 mental health providers in the North Texas area. So you can go to herefortexas.com and search by filter for different resources that you may be looking for. So you could say, I'm looking for individual therapy for depression, of a teenager in Aubrey, and I have Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance. So then all the providers that match your filters will come up. And when you click on a provider, they have this detailed outline of, what kind of therapy they do, what kind of people they see, when their office hours are, if they have virtual visits, how much it is for their fees, or if they take your insurance. And so they'll have all that information there for you. And then we also have our mental health navigation line. So you can call this number 972-525-8181. Anyone can call Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And it's really just a line. It's not a crisis line. It's a resource helpline. So if you don't really know where to turn, you need to get your kid connected with resources or connected with a therapist, or maybe you do, or for a friend, but you just don't really know where to start, and you don't have anyone in your life that you could ask for, a referral. You can call this number and just kind of tell what's going on, what kind of resources you're looking for, and we have trained navigators that will get all the information from you and exactly what you're looking for. And then we have licensed staff who will then case manage your call. And they'll email you over a tailored list of resources for you to try. So, maybe 3 or 4, so it's not overwhelming. And then we'll give you a call back, in the next week or two, and say, hey, did you get an appointment? Were those good resources for you? Do you want us to look for something different? How else, can we help you or guide you? So this is a really awesome resource to just have that kind of guided feel, to be able to find resources, because it can be really overwhelming to just, go to Google and try to find a therapist for your kid, because countless things are going to come up, and you don't know who's good, or who, who's been seen, who has seen someone who's similar to what your kid is going through. So this is a really great resource for you guys. And again, it's not just for adolescent mental health. You can call for any adult resources also. And then we also share the National Crisis Text Line. This is something that we share a lot with young people, but you can text hello, or actually any word at all, to 741-741 and be connected with a trained crisis counselor. It's free, nationwide, 24/7 text line for anyone that's in crisis or emotional distress. And then, of course, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is 1-800-273-TALK. Again, 24/7, free, confidential. I always encourage people to save this number in your cell phone. I have it saved in mine just in case. If you ever needed it, you wouldn't want to be, Googling it and looking and trying to find the number. It's better to just have it saved in your phone. And you can call for yourself, or you can call for someone else. You can call if you're worried about someone and you're not really sure what to do or how to help them. This is a great resource. And they also connect to the GPS on your phone. So if you need to say, hey, what's the closest emergency room to me? They can give you, whatever that local resource is. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and would love to answer any questions you have. You can feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat. I meant to say at the beginning of the at the beginning of the presentation, if you had any questions or comments as I was presenting, to please put them in the chat, but I don't think that I said that. So if you have any questions or comments or thoughts or anything, please feel free to put those in the chat. And I'm also going to put the link to our website in the chat, because there's a lot of really great resources on there. Or if you're interested in learning more about, the navigation line or any of our mental health resources, you can find them on our website. Absolutely. And I'll put my email in the chat here also. If anyone has, a more personal question or wants to talk about, something your kid is going through, please feel free to reach out. We would love to help. Okay, getting a lot of thank yous, no questions. Y'all are so welcome.
I just want to say, because I know that a few people were not able to be here at the very beginning of the presentation, I wanted you to know that I did record this and it will be uploaded onto the counselors page on the school website, so that you will have access if you want to go back and catch the pieces that you missed.
Perfect. And Carrie, I will send you my slides in a PDF, so you guys will all have access to the slides too, so you can see those. And I'll actually, before I send them, I'll go back and add in those couple mindfulness activities that I ran you through. I have some slides on those that I use in another presentation. I'll put those in there, so if you guys want to refer back to those, you can have them too. Well, if anyone thinks of any questions, I'll hang out a little bit and hang back if anyone wants to wait and ask a question. But if not, thank you so much again for giving me some of your time in the evening. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all of the positive impacts that you guys are making on your kids. I know y'all are doing an amazing job and helping them through this really hard time. So thank you for all the work you do with young people. All right, looks like most everyone is logged off here. Carrie, thank you again so much for having us. We would love to come back anytime. I don't think we've done our SAFE presentation for you guys.
We have that scheduled for May 19th. We're going to do. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if it'll be me or Vanita, but if it's me, I'll see you then.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you so much. And I got a lot of thank yous too, just separately. So I know that our community appreciates it as well. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
You too.